Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the channel. Thanks for checking out the video. And thanks for being here live if you're here live, because yes, we're doing it live again. But it is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them. And we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, The Unstoppable Doom Patrol, issue number 3. This book has been very impressive to me. Now, this is a 6-issue series that has actually recently been upgraded to a 7-issue series. So it's got one more issue added to it. That's awesome. But this should actually be an ongoing series, because this is exactly the kind of comic books that I like from DC. This is exactly what I like from superhero comics. Big, boisterous, weird, great art, wacky concepts, great characters, great interactions, and it's just done so splendidly well. The artwork is absolutely amazing. It's a nice little take on Fast and Furious with the fast and the nebulous. But you got the Doom Patrol. Throughout this entire series, they've been trying to help find and gather up a lot of these strange new heroes that have debuted since Lazarus Planet. And this one's got a connection to Starro, so the Justice League's a little bit nervous about that. And the Green Lanterns are trying to stop Doom Patrol from carrying out their mission. And I love, at first, I didn't know if I liked the idea of the Doom Patrol being so firmly implanted into the DC Universe. And obviously they are part of the DC Universe, but having a book almost rely on interactions with these other characters, but it's actually working. Dennis Culver's doing a great job of keeping it vibrant, keeping it fun, and the artwork by Chris Burnham is absolutely stunning to me. And who's the colorist? Reber here? Brian Reber doing a great job on the coloring, I'll tell you that. Anyway, wacky, wild, fun. If you like Doom Patrol, this is the book for you. I am so glad we got a bonkers, awesome Doom Patrol book, even though it's only a 7-issue series. Then we got City Boy. City Boy is a new one from DC. This is part of their We Are Legends imprint that they are kind of launching out for Pacific Islander Asian American Heritage Month or something like that. But City Boy is a Greg Pak character. He is a kid, or young man, who has been like tested on or like experimented on, and he's developed these powers where he can, like, it's almost like Jack Hawksmoor, but it's not there. It's like some of the same similar ideas of Jack Hawksmoor from Warren Ellis's The Authority, but a little bit different. It's all right. It was a pretty solid first issue. Did a great job of setting everything up. Had a nice pace to it. Decent enough artwork. Sets up the origin, sets up the world, sets up the characters. It didn't completely blow my mind, but it was pretty fun, and I did enjoy it. So City Boy number 1 I thought was pretty nifty. Then we got Green Arrow issue number 2. Joshua Williamson doing a great job on Green Arrow, really bringing the element of legacy and family into the book. Now, when we think of families in the DC Universe, first thing we think of is Vin Diesel. Second thing we think of is like the Bat family, the Flash family, the Super family. Well, the Arrow family is kind of a big deal too, and not a lot of runs usually try to focus on that. I think usually most of them, especially in recent years, because of the success at that time of the Arrow TV show, I think a lot of the Green Arrow books always try to lean into that, like Solo, Ollie, on his own, and you get that here, but you do have this building up of the Arrow legacy that I really like. So you got Black Canary, you got Roy Harper, you got Connor Hawk, you got Roy's daughter, lots of reunions, lots of interesting dynamics, and basically Ollie, since he's been lost since the end of Dark Crisis, he's like being flung from reality to reality, or to world, or to time, and it's an interesting dynamic. I really like it. I like the art. The only thing I don't like about the art in this one is it feels like something's a little muted in the printing. It feels like it's a little, I don't know, like it just feels like it didn't quite print right. But the artwork's dynamic, the story is cool, and the focus on the legacy is what I really like there. Speaking of legacy, we got Justice Society of America. It is, by the way, first thing in the morning, I've got things up on my window right there, because at first I was just complete, like, it was, so I'm sorry if it's like super bright. like in my face, but I'm trying. So Justice Society of America, issue number 4. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while since this one's been out, you know. Mikhail Hanen is not the quickest artist, and I like his art, but it's a little spacious. It's just a little too loose sometimes that I don't know if it's necessarily worth the wait. But this book definitely is worth the wait because it's actually a really fun book. It is a Justice Society book by Geoff Johns, so there's no reason to ignore it based on that. But it's an interesting story where you've got Helena Wayne, Huntress in the future. Her Justice Society's been destroyed by a villain. Now he's going back in time, trying to kill each iteration of the JSA backwards through time instead of forward through time, which you think would be the way that he would go, but apparently it didn't work. Anyway, you're building up the importance of this team by showing them in the future, showing them in the present, and showing them in the past. And that's something that structurally Geoff Johns has done before with books like Titans when he was doing Teen Titans, and even with JSA when he was doing that before. But I like this book. It's really cool. Focuses solidly on the characters, on the legacy of those characters, and the importance of these characters. And it's a really nifty, awesome story. So check that out. Then we've got Action Comics 1055. 1055 for Action Comics. I'm enjoying what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing in Action Comics right now. And we got this cyborg Superman story, and they're kind of trying to, Superboy's there, Steel's somewhere around the corner, and, the Eradicator can't be too far behind. So they're really leaning into that 90s reign of the Superman nostalgia. But you know what? That gets me because some of my favorite comics when I was a kid, John Byrne, Superman, and then the death of Superman, all that stuff, the reign and the return, like I ate that up every week, had to get to the shop to get the next chapter in the Triangle years, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so Action Comics today is pretty solid. I like it. It does feel just a little bit stiff compared to some of the previous issues. And it's not necessarily an art thing, but it is more kind of like a story thing. Like sometimes Philip Kennedy Johnson, his stories just stall out a little bit sometimes because of, I don't know, pontification or something like that. And who am I to even holler about that? But then you've got the Dan Jurgens Lee Week story, and it's cool. But I like the new Cyborg Superman story. I like the Doombreaker story, and the Steel story at the end is just kind of okay. Then we got Nightwing here with issue number 104. This is wrapping up that whole Neuron Underworld story. Basically, Nightwing's given superpowers for an hour or two to see what he can do with it and change the world. And it was a cool enough issue. It was all right. I feel like something's been lost in this book. And I think what it really is not that something's been lost, except for I think it's stressing the importance of Bruno Redondo on this book. His sleek style, his sense of movement and composition is something this book has been lacking for me in the last few issues. Now, I love Travis Moore, and the art's fine. The art is fine, and that's Super Nightwing right there. That's what he looks like. So the art is fine, but it just, a big part of the identity of this book is Bruno Redondo's artwork. Don't worry, he'll be back soon. He's working on something really cool. From Marvel, we got Daredevil and Echo, issue number 1. I guess there was supposed to be an Echo series out around this time, or they're getting this set up for when the Echo series does come out later on in the year. So Daredevil and Echo, this is by Taboo and B. Earl. They've been doing a lot of Marvel work lately. Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man, a few others. But Daredevil and Echo. Okay, so this is a 2-tier story, right? You got a modern, current-day story, kind of, with Daredevil and Echo, but then you got this story that's set in the early 1900s or something like that, and it's one of Matt's ancestors, and he's dealing with his own thing, and I just did not like it. It was all right, but it was just stiff. It was kind of dull. I didn't really like it. I do like Phil Noto, but there was just something uninspired by the artwork, just kind of bland, just kind of there, just kind of not really doing anything exciting with the story or with the artwork. And I guess I like the ties to the past. I guess we got one of Echo's ancestors and one of Matt's ancestors working together, but it just kind of comes across a little stiff, a little dull, and some of the characterizations don't quite work for me, including Maya, and that was interesting. Then we got Storm issue number 1. This is by Ann Nesenti. So this is one of those throwback Marvel comics, right? a throwback Marvel Comics where it's set right after Storm defeated Callisto to take over the Morlocks, and she becomes leader of the X-Men. She gets the mohawk. She starts wearing the leather jacket and stuff. So it's set in that era, and very firmly so, and it's not a bad book, but if you do not like that era of comics, you will not like this one. The artwork, first of all, is not the greatest here. It's okay. It's serviceable. It is very wordy, but it does not have like a stalled out flow to it. It has a good flow. And it's a lot of introspection. It's just, this is one of those throwback things. So if you like the X-Men books from the 80s, from this era, I would recommend that you check it out. But the art could be a little bit better, I think. So there you go. Then we've got Fury #1. It's live, Trenton. How are you doing? And I saw somebody ask what time it is. It is 8:30 a.m. here in Alabama. Fury #1. This is a one-shot comic celebrating the 60th anniversary of Nick Fury. And it's by Al Ewing and a bunch of different artists, including Adam Kubert. Adam Kubert's got a really cool bit in here. Let me show you some of that. Like the Adam Kubert, excuse me, the Adam Kubert stuff is actually really good in this book. The book itself, though, was just kind of okay, right? So it's like Fury's son, which is like the MCU Fury, basically, right? He's doing this mission. He's trying to find out who Scorpio is and all this kind of stuff. There's lots of they're trying to throw back to the Jim Steranko stuff, and it's kind of there, but it also doesn't really kind of work. But they're also throwing back to like Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos. That's what the Kubert bit is, and it works for that. So it's one of those stories that's like past, present, and maybe the future. So it's dealing with the legacy of Fury. It deals with old school Fury. It deals with new school Fury. But overall, it was kind of overly long, overwrought, and kind of boring to me. So I didn't really like that one. Then we've got Extreme Venomverse issue #2. I actually like this one better than the first one. This one's got some nifty stories in it. The first one is like, what if Black Cat got the symbiote? So it's like Venom, Black Cat. And that was actually a pretty solid story. The second one was like, what if the Venom symbiote gets fooled into bonding with a life model decoy? So it's the life model Venom. And that was actually a cool idea. And then the last story was like set in the 1608, or is it 1602? The Neil Gaiman stuff, that's 1602, right? Not 1608. What's 1608? I'm thinking of 1408. 1602. Is it 1602? Anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. It was like a medieval kind of version of Venom, and he's like a court jester, and I thought it was actually not that cool. Not that cool. I thought that was all right. All right, then we got Warlock Rebirth, issue #2, one of those throwback books. Hey guys, you remember Warlock comics in the 90s? Do you remember Ron Lem? Do you remember Ron Mars? Well, here you go, packaged again. The same team from Silver Surfer Rebirth doing what they did there, but with Warlock. I like this book. I like this book a lot. It is easy. It is breezy. It is not trying to do too much. It's doing exactly what it needs to do, which is hit that nostalgia button, tell a good story, and give me some Ron Lem artwork. Yes. Are the Rons as good as they were back in the 90s? I don't know. I was young in the 90s. All those 90s comics I like, they're not always the greatest. You know what I'm saying? But I am liking this book. We're introducing Eve Warlock, I guess, to Adam's. Eve's Adam. Anyway, so the High Evolutionary, and this is definitely playing on the idea that Warlock and the High Evolutionary have just recently been featured in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was awesome. Awesome. Anyway, that's why they're doing this. Warlock is here. There's a replacement for Warlock. It's a woman, and Warlock's just kind of sad about it, and that's what's happening in this issue. But it's a nice throwback to the Warlock Cosmic Infinity Watch stuff from the 90s. The Excellent #3. It's Mike Allred. It's Laura Allred. It's Pete Milligan's working together, doing this continuation of their X-Force Ecstatics Excellent run. I love it. I love it so much. This book says so much about culture, social media, and it's been doing that for a long time. This book initially got its start in X-Force in the early 2000s, y'all. But I'm a big mark for the Allreds, and you know that. And you know that every time this book comes out, I'm going to trip all over it because I love it. I love it so much. So the Excellent is here, and that was great. Star Wars, Darth Vader, Black, White, and Red, issue #2. I was very impressed with issue #1, mostly because there was a really good Peach Momoko story, and I think it was Klaus Janson had some cool stuff. This one was all right. So I was reading the Jason Aaron story, which is that's going to be the thread that goes through all of these. This is an anthology, of course, but the first story is always a continuation of the same story by Jason Aaron. And it was all right. I actually kind of fell out of it and stopped reading it. I don't know. And I just don't think that the use of the black, white, and red is so effective in there. The second story had some really cool artwork that I liked the grit and the texture. I thought they utilized the color format of the book a little bit better. And then the last story, oh yeah, the last story I thought was kind of dull and boring. I didn't really like that. So this may be the last Darth Vader black, white, and red, or blood. What are they calling it? Black, white, and red. I try to read Star Wars books, y'all. I really, really do. All right, jumping over to Image, we got Indigo Children, issue number 3. This is the best issue of Indigo Children yet. It's really been building up some momentum. The Indigo Children are kids with, like, superpowers, like, crazy abilities that are there to, like, change the world, but somehow, some way, some organization or some group, managed to wipe all of their memories and place them in like really isolated places or in really bad lives or something like that. And this one has a very riveting story about a young woman whose family was murdered, and then the dude responsible for the murdering of her family like adopts her and forces her to like be his child. And we're dealing with that. So each issue of Indigo Children, one of these kids is being reawakened and something is building up. And it's that dramatic and intentional pace to this book and build up that really makes it pay off issue to issue. Issue 1 was good. Issue 2 was better. Issue 3 was damned solid. Indigo Children. Then we got Terror War, issue number 2. I liked Terror War number 1. It's about this near futuristic world where people's fears can like come out, like things you're terrified of, they become real and they can like take out things, big monsters. So there's this group of people that they go out there and their job is to overcome fear, and they're able to do that, and they fight the monsters. And there's a rival gang too, and they get involved, and it was all right. I liked the first issue, but the second issue kind of faltered for me just a little bit, but I did like the artwork still. And I will once again say, this is the importance of an inker, is when you can get like detail, complexity, texture, grit, things like that. But the issue was just all right. It kind of fell off for me in a big way. So we'll see what happens when issue 3 drops. Then we got King Spawn here with issue number 22 of King Spawn. I'm loving King Spawn, loving the Spawn books, one of the best values out there in comics. Cardstock cover, $2.99. Great covers, not too many either. Solid artwork and some old school approaches like the centerfold, but I like it. And when you have a book that starts with Spawn throwing brains and telling dogs to go and get it, I mean, that's pretty badass. That's pretty badass, right? And lots of explanations, and we get built up to a point here at the end where I'm really pumped for the next issue, so I hope we get some revelations on that. Kaya is here with issue number 8. Kaya has been one of the undersung books out there right now. Wes Craig, Jason Wordie, and World Design, they have been killing it on this. I don't know, it's almost, I could easily say that this is kind of a light book, but it's not. Like, it's tempting to say it's a light book, but it's not. It deals with some heavy stuff, but it doesn't necessarily always deal with it in a heavy way. The artwork is brilliant. If you look at Wes Craig's work on Deadly Class, which I adore, and then look at this, it's levels above. It's way better. It's more like intentional. The composition is striking. It's solid. The pacing, relying on the images. This is how you tell a story visually in this medium. Wes Craig knows it. He understands it. And Kaya is not just one of the best books out there on the shelves. It is definitely one of the best looking books and probably some of the best example of sequential storytelling on shelves right now, especially today. Then we got Nightclub here with issue number 5. Issue number 5 of Nightclub. I liked this issue. This is a story about kids who become vampires. They use their vampiric powers to become superheroes, okay? So that's awesome. That's cool. It's been fun, but they've really, Mark Miller and company, have really amped up the intensity in this issue by introducing a group of villains, and this was a good one. There's a moment in here, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a moment where something that should have been so obvious to happen happens, but it's still shocking because it's a cliche in and of itself. Anyway, great artwork. A focus in on the villains, and these villains are bad, and they're awesome, and there's some near dark vibes in that one for sure. Then we got Ambassadors, issue number 5. Issue number 5 of Ambassadors. It's all right. Like, honestly, I think so far this book has peaked at issue number 3, and it's just been on a decline since. I mean, it's an okay issue. Each issue's kind of focused. So this is a world in which they're giving superpowers to representatives from each country or something. This one focuses in on the Australian guy, and he's kind of like this right-winger who's like old and decrepit and about near death, and he wants superpowers, and so he has to reveal something about himself. And that was an interesting little thing there, but I don't know. It didn't really come across as genuine or heartfelt or anything like that. It just kind of came across as silly. Just kind of came across as Mark Miller being Mark Miller, you know? And it was all right. It was decent enough, I guess, but the art was all right too. Like, it's different art on each issue, and you go from like Frank Quitely and Travis Charest and I mean, Matteo Buffagni is fine. I mean, I like the art. It's fine. It's that there was something off about this one. There was something off about this one. And there's been something off about that one. All right, then we got Blue Book, issue number 4. Loving this book. So this is the story of Betty and Barney Hill, one of the most popular alien abduction stories. This is their story, and this was the issue I was waiting for. This is awesome. This is Betty going to hypnotherapy and having her memories unlocked and what she went through. But it is kind of cold. It distances itself from the subject, and it just kind of rather methodically tells you the case. Like, if this was a TV show, it would be like, on December 13th, 1957, at 8 a.m. in the morning, on the, you know, it's kind of like that. It doesn't really, it's hard to connect into what Betty is going through just because of but it's a good book. And Michael Avon's Oeming's artwork is fantastic. But this was my favorite issue of this so far. And the backup story, John McCrae, amazing artwork on a story dealing with spontaneous combustion. That stuff right there, I love it. I used to watch all those like paranormal shows and stuff, and spontaneous combustion was always something that was really interesting to me. Then we got All 8 Eyes, issue number 2. This is written by Steve Fox with artwork by Piotr Kowalski. I'm loving it. So Kowalski just wrapped up Where Monsters Lie. And I was saying that at times the art felt a bit rushed and frantic. Here it is so tight, so clean, lots of detail, lots of grit. But this is about these dudes who are like some of the only people who know that giant spiders infest New York. Like, nobody knows about it, but there are giant spiders in New York, and they're trying to find the big queen. But it's good. It's a good, solid creature feature comic book. It deals with personalities. It focuses on the character. And the story as well, but the art is great. The intensity is there too when it needs to be. So I like that book. Then we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Usagi Yojimbo, Where When, issue number 3. Stan Sakai doing Usagi Yojimbo. Automatically awesome. Doing the Turtles again with Usagi Yojimbo. Even more awesome. Kevin Eastman cover. By the way, I didn't even think about cover of the week. I'll think about it. All right, because I'm tempted because I just love this Kevin Eastman Usagi right there. I think that's just so badass. Nothing necessarily exciting about the composition here. Nothing that we ain't never seen Kevin Eastman do before. But man, that Usagi is damned badass. I'll tell you that. All right. This is an action-packed issue of Usagi, and some big things happen here. And it happens in a really intense kind of way. I don't want to spoil things for you. I absolutely love those moments in Usagi Yojimbo where it just gets action-packed and it's like a battle. And that's what this is. And I love Stan Sakai's Turtles. I absolutely love his interpretation of the Turtles. If you're a fan of the Turtles and you've never checked out Usagi, I highly encourage you to check this out. Just to kind of get the vibe and the feel. And you can get all the Usagi stuff. It's available. It's in print through Dark Horse, through Fantagraphics. It's all there. Check it out. Please. Usagi Yojimbo is so good. Please check out that book. Please. All right, then we got Darkwing Duck issue number 5. Love that Ken Hazer Mazzucchelli homage cover right there. 5 issues in, I'm still loving Darkwing Duck. It is doing exactly what it needs to do. Telling nice self-contained stories as part of a larger narrative, using all the different villains at their disposal, and keeping the characters rooted and grounded into what we remember them being. The book's got a sense of zany fun, it's got a sense of bouncy adventure, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it shouldn't, because it's Darkwing Duck. It's an awesome book and one of my favorites from Dynamite. Then we definitely got the smell of the week here with Harrower, issue number 4. That's a good smell comic, man. You just got to get yourself a good sniff every once in a while. That's one of the best things. That's one of the best things to do. Where do you start with Usagi? You can actually start almost anywhere and just jump into it. That's what I did. However, book 1 of Usagi is called Ronin. So Usagi Yojimbo Ronin from Fantagraphics, or I would also recommend, if you really want to dive in, there is a Fantagraphics like special edition hardcover set, 2 giant hardcovers in a slipcase. I have one. If it was near me, I'd show it to you. But it has the entirety of the Fantagraphics run. Then you move over to the Dark Horse collections, and they call those Usagi Yojimbo Saga. Book 1, 2, 3, and I think they have like 8 of them, and they're giant. This book's been going on for decades, right? And it's worth it. Anyway, Harrower number 4. This read like the final issue. Pretty sure it's the final issue. Really like the way this story ended, but it did feel a bit rushed and wonky in its pacing. Looking at the 4 issues overall, it feels like it has a rushed ending and a prolonged opening. Now, when I was reading them as I was going on, I felt like it was too rushed in the beginning. I think this book could have used an extra issue or 2. And maybe it's not even over. I don't know. It reads just like a final issue. And it wraps up the story. And it wraps up the story in an interesting way. And it's basically, if you're not familiar, it's about the slasher, the Harrower, this town, and there's this slasher there, and you find out why. There's some bits of society in here as well. Like the Brian Usna Society movie. So think like, I don't know, man. Think something like Friday 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets Society. I don't know. That's probably putting different things in your head than what this actually is, but I do like the book. I thought it was fine, but it just felt a bit rushed towards the end, and that is the smell of the week. All right, and that's what I read. That's what I thought. So let's recap. Harrower, number 4, smell of the week, but kind of a rushed ending, but I liked the ending. Darkwing Duck doing exactly what Darkwing Duck should do. Turtles, Usagi Yojimbo. I'm just going to go ahead and give it the cover of the week for me, just because that Kevin Eastman Usagi is so badass, man. That book is awesome. Read Usagi. All 8 Eyes, really good creature feature horror. That's good stuff. Blue Book, kind of cold, but maybe it's designed to be that way because it's basically like a case book, but I'm liking it. Ambassadors is losing me. Nightclub is really getting me, though. I'm liking it more and more. Kaya, some of the best examples of sequential storytelling you're going to see. King Spawn, a book that starts with Spawn throwing a bunch of brains and telling dogs, go get it. That's awesome. Terror War dropped a little bit for me in its momentum. Indigo Children, though, continuing to just strengthen issue to issue. Star Wars, Darth Vader, Black, White, and Red. That's probably my last one. I mean, I try, y'all. I try. The Excellent is awesome. Warlock Rebirth, nice, fun, 90s nostalgia. Venom, Extreme Venomverse. I actually like that one. Some interesting, kooky concepts in that one. Fury, legacy-driven, focused on the history of Nick Fury, but kind of dull and a little bit boring. Storm, 80s nostalgia. If you like that Mohawk era Storm. And lots of melodrama. Okay? Lots of melodrama. So be prepared for that. Daredevil and Echo was just okay. Nightwing is pretty solid, but Bruno Redondo is being missed on this book. Action Comics continues to deliver, but it is getting a little bit more inconsistent. Just Society of America is doing really solid right now. Green Arrow number 2, continued momentum from the first issue, splendidly. Anyway, City Boy number 1 was all right, but the pick of the week, Unstoppable Doom Patrol number 3, that needs to be an ongoing series because that's what I like in my comics. So anyway, thank you all so much for checking out the video. I've got to be at work in 12 minutes, so I'm going to go head to the shop, so we can open up for new comic book day. Thank you for checking out the video. Let me know in the comments below, what are you reading? What are you digging? Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz and more. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Station. Pop, pop. Boom.